Okay, welcome to this meeting, the SACA membership on October 2022. This is our third quarter meeting. We have them quarterly, and we might pick up the pace and cadence of that next year. We're still kind of debating that. The Florida House of Representatives, for those who don't know, there are 120 districts in Florida, and each one has a representative. They meet in a 60-day regular legislative session. However, there can be special sessions, and there can also be committee meetings for them. They create and amend the laws of the U.S., and in particular, the state of Florida. They have the power to propose amendments to the Florida Constitution. They have the exclusive power to impeach state officials, and it's a 2-year term that each one of them has with an 8-year term limit. However, after they take a break, they can run for office, and then that resets for another 8 years if they would like that. To explain about Florida 60, there was some redistricting happened in Florida, and this is the old Florida 60, and it kind of jumped across the water there, and this is the new Florida 60 that you see right here. So it consists of about half of St. Petersburg. A little bit about our district. Again, it was just formed this year. It's a brand new district. It replaces the Florida House 68. And if you wondered what happened to Ben Diamond, his district just kind of disappeared. Ben's been on the Shore Acres Civic Association meetings several times. There is no incumbent, so both of our candidates are vying for an office that doesn't presently have a seat. Florida 60 that you saw on the other side of the bay has a seat, but she can't run because she doesn't live on this side of the bay. And it contains about half of St. Petersburg. Just a few rules of the road that I'm going to read here. The Shore Acres Civic Association is nonpartisan. We want this to be as cordial and as fair as possible to both candidates. Our goal is to give our residents the opportunity to learn what their views are. Each candidate will have equal time to express their positions. We have 5 questions from the community and the SACA Board of Directors. If time allows, we will get to some questions from the participants. Each candidate will have a short introduction and closing statement, and each candidate will have up to 5 minutes to answer each question. And the order in which they answer the question is going to alternate between one and the other. And with that, let's give a good Shore Acres welcome here to Audrey, Henson, and Linda Cross, running for the Florida 60. There we go. And let me stop sharing my screen here. Oh, did I stop sharing? I did stop sharing it. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to get to the opening statements, and we're going to start with, sorry, I should put that at the beginning. We're going to start with Lindsay. If you want to just tell us who you are and what your background is and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Well, good evening, SACA. Nice to see you all virtually. I am Lindsay Cross, running to be your next representative in District 60. That was a great explanation, Gary, of some of the roles of the Florida legislature and how things change in redistricting. I'll start by saying that I am a proud resident of this district. For the past 18 years, have been a homeowner in Crescent Heights. So if you go to Trader Joe's, you're just down the street from my house. I love this community and actually have deep roots in it through my family, grandparents and aunts and uncles. So as a Midwesterner, we would come down and vacation in this area, and it always felt like home to me. And now I'm glad that it has been my home for the past 21 years. My background is in environmental science and policy, and I discovered my passion for that very early on. Both of my parents were public school teachers, and my mom was doing a unit on Earth Day with some of her students and taught my brother Adam and I about that. We always knew that education was one of the most important things and in our house, and that if we got in trouble at school, we'd get in trouble twice as much at home. So we always had to make sure we listened to our teachers and respected our principals. but discovered my passion for the environment and really looking at the connection between humans and our environment and how we can make sure that everyone has clean water and that we're supporting the natural beauty of our planet. I pursued environmental science and earned a master's in environmental science and policy at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Actually looked at how to make regulations for stormwater less burdensome for industry, but still as effective at keeping our water clear and clean. And during my past 20 years working in the field, have had the opportunity to work with some of the most respected organizations in the state. I spent 14 years at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, and this is a collaborative partnership between industry and businesses, agriculture, all levels of government, where we identify a problem and look at how to find solutions. During my time there, we were able to improve our water quality in Tampa Bay to a level that we hadn't seen since the 1950s. We have more seagrass than we did back in the 1950s, in a time when we had only 1/6 of the population here. That was the result of proactive legislation and everyone within the community getting together and supporting this effort. We know in the Tampa Bay region, 20% of our economy is reliant on having a clean and healthy Tampa Bay. So it supports our tourism, it supports our businesses here, and it really enhances our quality of life in the area. I've also had the opportunity in the past few years to be up in Tallahassee advocating for you, looking at ways to cut government spending, government waste for things such as toll roads that would have impacted our water supply and some of our productive farmland, and fighting back against bad bills. When I get up to Tallahassee, I really want to focus on the issues that you're talking to me about at the door, whether that's our affordability crisis, making sure that we're growing our economic opportunities here for our students, increasing trade, apprenticeships, and mentorship programs, tapping into the resources that we have here that are so uniquely St. Pete in Tampa Bay region, making sure that we are the nationwide leader in marine science and technology and healthcare, and really creating great paying jobs here. Also want to work to address affordable housing here, because this should be a place where our teachers, our nurses, our first responders, where all our working families should have the opportunity to live and raise their families and have great paying jobs. I know there's questions on insurance, and I've been diving into that issue, and I'm really excited to, as they would say, get into some of the weeds on some of those issues. And I'm also a big advocate for health and wellness in our community. I'm proud to be part of the pro-choice majority and want to make sure that women have choices and freedoms to make their own decisions when it comes to their bodies and the health care that they need. I'll just close by saying that I've been running this campaign for 16 months. I am proud to have earned more than 40 bipartisan endorsements from elected officials in the local region, and 25 organizational endorsements, everyone from our firefighters to the Sierra Club, to our doctors, to our teachers. I have been working and serving in this community for the past 2 decades, and look forward to the opportunity to serve you in the Florida House.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. And Audrey, welcome to the Shore Acre Civic Association meeting. And if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary and Kevin, for putting this together. I know most of people watch this late, so hey to everyone here now, and hello to everyone joining us after. A little about myself. My name is Audrey Henson. I'm the owner of a local construction company called By the Bay Bobcats, and I'm running to represent you in Tallahassee. I grew up right here in St. Petersburg with a single mom and 2 younger brothers, and unfortunately a father who struggled with opioid and alcohol abuse. Anyone who's from this community knows that we were hit really hard by the opioid crisis. In fact, it still continues today to be one of a top 3 cause of death here. And so it's something that I think is not only important to share with you so that you understand why I'm running running, but so that you can join me in fixing and solving these problems. Things like addiction abuse is something that affects everyone, regardless of money, skin color, religion. It can affect us all. And I think we all can see, based on the horrible news, mental health is a crisis here in our country. And I think for too long, quite frankly, we've had politicians who were lawyers and lobbyists and didn't have strong empathy. And they didn't truly care about others, and they weren't approaching politics from a place of empathy and compassion. And that's something I'm here to change. A little about my background. So growing up with a single mom and a father who was in and out of prison, my family relied on government welfare for most of my life to raise me. I saw firsthand how these programs can be very helpful to a family. I also saw how they can be counterproductive and even hurtful in some ways. My mom was really eager. She was a hard worker. She was selling cars on US 19, but she had an idea to start her own business. But that didn't fall along in the framework of the programs that we were getting money from. And so I think politicians have played too much of a heavy hand in trying to make people's lives too black and white. And the truth is, most of us live here in the gray, right? We don't belong in boxes. Each one of our lives are unique, and we need individual solutions for that. And that's the kind of leadership I want to bring here. Prior to starting my construction company with my brother, I actually worked in public service. So I studied political science and wanted to go work in the mecca of politics, Washington, D.C. And I quickly learned that those positions up there were reserved for the rich kids. It was the mommies and daddies who gave to the donors, who knew the lobbyists, who were already involved, who were giving them money, and they were getting to get their kid put in internships and eventually hired as staff, almost as a benefit in our country. I don't believe in a political ruling class. I don't believe lobbyists have any place in our politics at all, especially not at that elected level. And I was pretty disgusted with what I saw over in Washington, D.C., and I'm seeing it here in Tallahassee too. And so rather than complain about it, I took action and I changed it. I created a nonprofit called College to Congress that to date has helped over 2,500 students out of poverty. It's given them technical job training skills, also practical life skills, everything from, how to control your own personal finances. I wrote a financial literacy course, something that we're finally starting to see in Florida curriculums today. A little too late, but we're grateful for that, right? Also teaching them, not only how to do your own finances, but how do you present yourself at work? How do you present a professional email? We have people graduating with master's degrees that don't actually know how to do anything except write a paper. I don't know about you guys, but in my career, I've never had to write a paper on anything. Most of life is working together, finding solutions to problems, being able to work with a diverse group of people, and then moving forward. And so all of that training we did at College to Congress was really giving them the practical skills they needed. I helped both Republican and Democratic students alike. At my organization, it was very common to see Kathy Castor and Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy all at the same event supporting that organization, because I think everyone realized that politics really had no part when it came to helping low-income young people. I was very proud to be a part of the advocacy efforts to get $48 million appropriated to help other low-income students. And I even expanded that program to the state of Florida here. And so I was very proud of the diversity work I did there. So whether you know me or not, I've already been advocating for you. I've spent the last decade fighting for working class families, fighting for low-income students, making sure that you're not held back by your zip code or by the choices you made in life. I truly do believe that every single day you have an opportunity to rewrite your story. So when I get into office, not only do I want to bring empathy to this process, I really want to dig deep and finding solutions to a lot of problems that, quite frankly, have plagued us here in St. Pete and Pinellas Park for far too long. I mean, red tide, I know we're going to talk about it tonight. It's been an issue since I was a kid, but when I was a kid, we'd have it for a week or two. We didn't have politicians coming and dumping sewage into the water right after. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised that no one's talking about that. You know, we all say, oh, red tide's a problem. And then we don't take the very next step to say, why are we dumping sewage in our water at a time and fertilizing this already naturally occurring red tide? It's kind of insane to me. Again, too many lobbyists, lawyers, politicians, not enough real people who truly care. And so that's what I'm stepping up here to do. I recently got married. My husband and I are in the process of family planning. Pretty discouraging to see that Pinellas County schools are just as bad when I went there 20 years ago. So I want to invest heavily into our schools. You know, most of our state funding goes to either healthcare or education. It's simply not enough. We need to pay teachers more, but we also need to have individualized education for students. I was actually just talking to a mom yesterday who told me that she pulled her kid from a traditional district-run school, put them into a charter school, and it's because her daughter was autistic and she simply wasn't getting the attention she needed, and now she's thriving. And so these are the kind of success stories I want to hear more often from families. I really do think education is one of those areas where hopefully we can have some more bipartisan solutions. You know, half of our kids here in Tampa Bay can't read at the 3rd grade level. So it's kind of hard to sit here and mudsling at politics if our kids can't read and write. I think we can all agree that we need to teach those basics again. So excited for your time and excited to get to dive into some of these questions.
Okay, and you get the first question, and then we'll go to Lindsay. And it is as follows. Shore Acres is a low-lying area, as all of us know. And like many areas in District 60, our insurance rates are steadily climbing. Insurance companies are either going bankrupt are pulling out of Florida altogether. What will you do at the state level to ensure that we have access to affordable flood insurance in the future?
So this is something that's actually affected me and my family, and I'm curious if people are willing to participate just by a show of hands. Has your home insurance or flood insurance increased this year? Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing heads nod, hands go up. So when I bought our house in June of 2020, we were quoted $1,200 for our home insurance. The next year it increased to $2,600, and a week before our wedding, it increased to $5,700. That to me is not an option. Citizens was the only company willing to insure us, and then they have had a monopoly and been able to increase it every single year. It gets to a point where families simply can't afford it. Our wages aren't increasing, and yet we see our insurance of both kinds, home insurance and flood insurance, increasing so drastically at the exact same time. And this is what is so insulting to regular people like us. At the exact same time, these companies are going bankrupt and they're not able to pay out on our policies that we're putting in. There's an absolute crisis happening, and it's not as simple as saying, oh, we're going to write a bill and fix this, because quite frankly, a big problem is the fact that we have frivolous lawsuits. We have bad actors. You know, we saw them with the roofing scam that was happening. And thank God, you know, our state legislator got a handle on that. Senator Jeff Brandes called a special session. He started working on that. I'm proud to be endorsed by him and to get his mentorship through this. He really made a name for himself at being the insurance expert in Tallahassee. And I'm spending weekends with him, just learning as much as I can and just getting up to speed, because this is what I hear is one of the #1 issues in our district. The unaffordability of flood insurance, the unaffordability of housing insurance. So I'm a big believer in not recreating the wheel. And so I think it's really important. I did some digging and I found out that there was a bill passed last year called the Resilient Florida Grant Program. And it allows funding to help protect our coastlines. It's a resiliency program. A lot of Pinellas County has tapped into this. We have it here in St. Pete. And it is as simple as your state rep going and filling it out. My team actually reached out to the program and we're going to start filling it out and having a study done. And then we can get money appropriated to us very quickly. You can get over $100,000 appropriated to start working on these very issues. I think, unfortunately, you know, this is politics, and politics came into play with your previous state rep. And that's why we didn't get to benefit from this program. And so having new leadership, a fresh face, someone who's friendly with leadership, I've been endorsed by all of leadership here in Florida, making sure that I'm able to really give us the loudest voice possible to ensure that we're getting appropriated money that we deserve.
Thank you, Audrey and Lindsay.
All right, thank you. So when I'm elected, I expect this will be the first issue that we tackle, likely with a special session as early as December, and it can't come soon enough because the special session that was called in the spring did not do enough to address the insurance crisis that we're in or to help everyday ratepayers. Hurricane Ian is only going to make things more expensive, and some of the current estimates suggest it could be $55 billion to pay for some of the damages. As mentioned, the fraudulent roofing companies, that is absolutely something that we need to be laser focused on. What's happening is that homeowners are assigning away their benefits, do not understand how that whole process works. A bad actor through these roofing companies will sue the insurance company. It could take 6 to 8 months to get a check and eventually a new roof on the home. In that time, homeowners, the private insurance companies are dropping homeowners. Citizens will not create a new policy because there's an open claim. And so these homeowners are left without a roof. They're left without coverage in a very vulnerable time. And we know that by the grace of God, we were able to escape the significant impacts from Hurricane Ian. So it means being laser focused on cracking down on fraudulent roofing companies, looking at things like the actual cash value for a roof. Frankly, I don't think it's fair to pay someone for a 20-year-old roof, a brand new roof, when you would not go to your auto insurance company if you need new tires. There's also an insurance fraud that's part of that. And so a $15,000 roof may also result in a large settlement for an attorney as well. So that is something that we need to address when it comes to insurance within the state. When we're looking specifically at flooding insurance, we know that the shore acres is vulnerable, as are so many low-lying and coastal areas within the state. There are programs, particularly through the federal government, looking at proactively addressing our flooding risk. I'm an environmental scientist, and I've been working on some of these flooding and resilience and coastal issues for more than a decade. I actually helped to convene a conference more than a decade ago at the USF Patel Center for Global Sustainability, where we actually brought experts from the Netherlands over to explore some different solutions that we could have, ways that we could live with water and have the appropriate mix of flooding, of resilience, and mitigation. So for communities that are proactive, we do have the Tampa Bay Resilience Coalition, which started about 8 years ago and is a coalition with all of our local cities, our municipalities, our county governments in this area. And we are actually ahead of the curve from many areas, even though we still are dealing with that. But for taking some of those proactive steps and looking at what the projected sea level rise is, what areas are going to be most vulnerable, you can actually receive some reductions in flooding insurance from the federal government and through FEMA. So that's a program that we need to be taking advantage of and making sure that we understand our risk and are taking appropriate steps to mitigate that whenever possible.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, who's going to ask the next question.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you guys for coming tonight. We really appreciate that here in Shore Acres. This question goes to Lindsay first. Shore Acres was deeply affected by red tide last year. If elected, what do you think you can do to prevent chemical spills such as the one that occurred at Piney Point and other issues that cause red tide? What can you do at the state level to prevent those things?
Yeah, that's a great question and something I know that deeply affected us here and our quality of life. This is an area, improving our water quality, as I said, is something that I've been involved with for 20 years, starting with my work at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. Piney Point and the disaster that happened there was preventable. And it really is an example of what happens when there's not accountability for corporate polluters and when some of our government entities are not enforcing the laws that are already in the books. That plant was built back in the 1960s. Since then, there's been 5 owners of that company, 5 emergency discharges of polluted toxic water. There's actually been 3 deaths at that facility. So that's not the first time that we've had a tragedy in something that not only affected our ecology, but human life and public health. Your current representative, Ben Diamond, sponsored a bill last year that would have increased accountability for the phosphate industry by helping to create a publicly accessible website where each year that would be updated with the current risks from phosphate companies. There's about 24 other phosphogypsum sites throughout our state. We know that there's a tear in the liner of one of the facilities in Central Florida. So this is not a new issue, and it's not something that will go away until there's appropriate accountability. I have worked on advocacy for clean water and for healthy communities for the past 3 years and have helped support that bill that Representative Diamond sponsored. It did not get any traction because the leadership was not willing to hear it because there is so much influence from special interests in some of the corporate polluters. So first of all, making sure we have accountability for those corporate polluters. Red tide is caused by pollution. It's caused by nitrogen and phosphorus, whether it's in fertilizer, whether it's in human or animal waste. What it does is it feeds these algae that we don't want to have in the bay. So Piney Point was a supercharged example of that, with 215 million gallons of highly polluted liquid fertilizer that went into the bay. Lower Tampa Bay received as much nitrogen pollution in 10 days as it would normally get in an entire year. So if you think about eating your entire calories for an entire year over a 10-day span, you can imagine what havoc it's going to wreak on your body. And that's what we saw in Tampa Bay. We have made progress in improving water quality. There is a residential fertilizer ordinance in Pinellas County, which is one of the most proactive ones in the state. I helped to work on that at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program in collaboration with our local governments and the fertilizer agencies and community members. However, what happened the next year is other local governments were preempted from having those proactive regulations because the fertilizer industry fought back against it. And so common sense solutions that are preventing pollution are being stopped by special interest in Tallahassee. So we need to be willing to elect people who are going to stand up against them. There also needs to be more investment in our infrastructure, whether that's moving from septic to sewer, whether that's upgrading our sewer lines, our wastewater facilities. As we see more people coming into our city, we see the high rises that are coming. The city and the state need to jointly be investing and making sure that we have the capacity in our wastewater treatment plants so that we do not have spills and that we're protecting the quality and the integrity of our Tampa Bay.
Thank you. Audrey, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. I actually really enjoy this topic because I think it's very refreshing to find a topic where Republicans and Democrats agree. And anyone who lives here knows the importance that water has on our lives. I mean, I remember last summer during that red tide bloom, I couldn't even run outside. I mean, I was getting asthma. My dog was getting sick. Like I heard stories over on Snell of people who had fish washing up onto their yard. Dogs were eating it and dying. They were being poisoned to death. I mean, we know here the importance that protecting our water has. And I think it's really exciting to have an issue where political parties kind of go aside and it's just the focus and the health of our community. I agree. I think that politicians and corporations need to be held accountable. I think that people who claim to have worked on this problem that's only progressed and gotten worse need to not be a part of it any longer. They're clearly failing. Only in politics do you find people fail up It is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. If you were at a job and you weren't doing your job, you wouldn't continue to get promoted. But in politics, we seem to reward people who simply can't perform for you. So I don't understand that, but it needs to come to an end. We have had too much pollution here. I agree. Look at our hospitality industry relies totally on our water being clean. My brother's a fishing captain. You better believe that his company was affected last year when this happened. You know, I want to raise my family here in Pinellas the same way I was raised. Getting to go to the beach, getting to go fishing, getting to be a part of this gorgeous community. That's what brings us all here, the water. We love the water here. I pulled a couple of investments that the Florida State Legislature has already been doing. $1.2 million for these resilient coastline initiatives. Again, we're not tapping into them fully. A big part of politics, of course, is relationships. So I want to help us tap into that. $500 million in federal funding for resilient projects. And so that's going to be countering the sea rising levels. I know that if you're in Shore Acres, you're likely living in a zone A or B evacuation and flood zone. And so there, you know, we can't build every new house up, right? It's just not practical, but there are things we can build around it to help. You know, one of the things we do at By the Bay Bobcats is come in and grade away from homes. And we need the city actually to step in as a private company. We're doing everything we can to protect homeowners from floods. But we all know the city of St. Pete is failing Shore Acres whenever it comes to the sewage lines. I mean, it rains for like 5 minutes and then it floods for a week. You shouldn't have to have a Jeep Wrangler just to get to your house, but you do. That's just the reality. And we need to see local politicians and state politicians and even our federal level elected folks who get to commission these studies all work together on this problem. And I'm really encouraged that this is something that we all care deeply about and that we can get everyone on board with.
Thank you, Audrey. The next question, hang on here. The next question, you'll begin, and then we'll go to Lindsay. We have, well, it's important to know what motivates whatever candidate that we're going to send to the state. And the question is, what made you decide to run in the first place? Because we know that politics can be kind of messy, and sometimes we're not very kind to our politicians. So what motivated you to run and get into politics? And if you are elected, what is your primary goal in Tallahassee?
I think we're going back and forth, so it's my turn, right?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Awesome. Listen, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I've been wildly vulnerable in this race and have shared, sometimes much to the dismay of my family, what is motivating me. And I think it's because you're right. It's important. We have to know what people are being motivated by. For too many people, running for office is simply a stepping stone in their career. And we see this all the time in Pinellas. We are no stranger to people using elected office to come in as one party or come in with one goal and leave as another. I don't have to give you the examples. You're thinking of 2 or 3 people right now at the top of your head. I'm sick of that, quite frankly. As someone who grew up having the government really thrusted into my life from the earliest age I can remember, and seeing the effects it can have, like, that's where my passion comes from. That's why I studied politics. That's why I went to DC to intern. I'll share that story because I think it will help you see really what is motivating me. So after getting my first job at 14 to give my father in prison commissary money, I realized how much is truly wrong with our criminal justice system. And I was working with his court-appointed attorney who was shocked to learn I was 14. He was like, "What are you doing? Like, why isn't someone else doing this?" I was like, there is no one else. And I think for a lot of people, they come to the government because there is simply no one else. And we've heard the right's talking point of, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like figure it out on your own. And we've heard the left's talking point of like, everyone should get that helping hand. I think, again, life needs to be individualized. The government approach to everything needs to be individualized. And we need to work with nonprofits. We need to work with groups where we can, because what I found in my father's life is that whenever we got the church involved, whenever I was able to help him, that's where we saw true change. And when I went on to study politics, I was idealistic. I was optimistic, and I still am today. And I think it's good to bring some optimism to our political process. It does get dirty. You're right. People lie about you all the time. Trust me, I'm being lied about, and a lot of money is being spent to push those lies. But you have to keep your eye on the prize. And for me, the prize is serving everyday, hardworking Floridians, getting them out of these, troubles that sometimes aren't even their own. Children, like my story, they don't elect to be in that situation. It's just put upon them. And so I'm really just motivated and hopeful to get to have the change that I saw in so many of my students' lives at College to Congress. We had an undocumented student, her name was Rosario, and we placed her in an internship with Congresswoman Kathy Castor, the Democratic Congresswoman, now for our area because of redistricting. So she's come across the bridge. And what we saw in Rosario's life was she brought a unique experience, having had undocumented parents, to coming into Washington, D.C. and working on immigration. And I think that's a true power and a beauty in our process, and something we quite frankly haven't tapped into enough in this country. Even Tallahassee, it's full of people who used to donate money, who used to lobby, who have already been there or whose daddy was there before them. I mean, you don't have to be a political scientist to know that that's just simply not right. It's not fair and it's not okay. And we see the way they vote and how corporations and how special interests and how their own ego plays into the decisions they're making. Listen, I'm not beholden to anybody except the people here. I've made that wildly clear. I will continue to do so. And I would really say that's what's leading me. It's empathy and compassion for everyday families.
Thank you, Audrey. Lindsay?
Well, I'd like to start by thanking you for sharing your story, Audrey, and kind of how you've used that to elevate students. I think that is really important, and how that motivates you. So I appreciate that. I'm running for this seat. Clearly, I have a passion for the environment and have been working in this field for 20 years. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I did not see that leadership up in Tallahassee. And I saw that we were having declines in our water, and that there weren't people that were standing up to protect the health of our community members or our economy. Frankly, I would rather be paddling or snorkeling for scallops than going up to Tallahassee, because it's a lot more enjoyable. But there's no one up there who is doing that job and has the experience that I do. And so I feel that I've been called to bring my experience up to Tallahassee to be an expert in that field, but also the skills that it takes to work on environmental issues. It is something that crosses party lines, that we all care about clean water. We all care about the health of our families and having a strong economy. And you don't get to solutions without being a collaborator and without being able to work with people and really targeting the problem, not the people. To improve our water quality in Tampa Bay, we had to work with business in phosphate and industry, and there needs to be those collaborative relationships. And so I already have the experience doing that, working with bipartisan lawmakers and folks from around the state. So I think my experience as a conservation advocate is going to give me a leg up so that I can hit the ground running and finding solutions. And also the work that I've done through leadership programs at the University of Florida, Leadership St. Pete, Eckerd College, years of facilitating stakeholder groups, managing research and restoration projects, really are targeted at getting to the root of a problem and, again, finding solutions. I see one of the biggest problems affecting St. Pete in this district is affordability issues and maintaining our quality of life. So this means two things. It means expanding good paying jobs and lowering the cost of living here. We need to be focused on how we can make housing more affordable, whether it's skyrocketing rents or insurance, as we've talked about a lot. Tallahassee, frankly, needs to be a better partner on affordability. For the past, the Republican-led legislature has been stripping funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think it's disingenuous to have funds that are supposed to go to a dedicated program and a dedicated need be used for other purposes. So we need to restore funding for that and work cooperatively with our local governments that are trying to work with developers that want to do the right thing. I think when the city of St. Pete or Pinellas Park wants to be a good partner and streamline permitting or lower impact fees, even looking at things like partial or full donations of land to developers who are going to commit to putting in units that are going to address the needs of our teachers, our nurses, our first responders, Tallahassee needs to be supportive and not preempt those type of programs. And looking at how we're going to expand workforce opportunities here. I already alluded to the opportunities that we have for STEM, for technology, for marine science, for industry, but looking at our trade programs and our apprenticeships and our mentorship programs. I think one of the reasons why we're looking at problems with inflation and supply chain is because we haven't been investing in manufacturing and trades in our own communities. So rather than us being reliant on Russia or China or Chile for our produce or our energy, we should be increasing solar, rooftop solar. We should be making sure we're maintaining our productive agriculture. We should be investing in the schools and the trades right here in Pinellas County. And so I want to make sure that we maintain our quality of life and make it more affordable for all our working class families.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, and Lindsay, you'll be the first to go.
Great. Thanks, Gary. So both of you have touched on this next topic a little bit, but it's pretty complex, and it's probably the single most important topic for Shore Acres residents. Last month, we were in the direct track of Hurricane Ian, which caused widespread damage to areas it eventually hit. Knowing that your district is vulnerable to tropical storms, what will you do at the state level to help mitigate the private property losses and infrastructure caused by flooding? And just a side note, this past session, $100 million was set aside for these types of products these projects by the state. And as a follow-up question, if elected, are you willing to work directly with SACA on this particular issue?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question, Kevin. I will start by saying I absolutely will work with SACA on this, and I look forward to that, to your projects and your ideas. So the idea of the resiliency and our vulnerability as a peninsula on a peninsula, it's actually like a triple peninsula. Shore Acres on Pinellas County, on Florida, we are incredibly vulnerable here. There were major investments in raising the Shore Acres Bridge. Because of the increases in the sea levels that we've already seen, that was an appropriate investment to maintain safe access to the water and maintain the high property value. So I fully support that. But when we're looking at the resilience of our region, we need to look both at mitigation and the root causes of things. So for several years, there's been a bill in Tallahassee looking at setting renewable energy goals for our state. And so that does not mean taking away access to all gas or natural gas or doing away with gas-powered cars. What it does is it means setting some goals and starting to shift our way towards a portfolio that includes more solar and that includes more wind energy. That is going to lower utility rates for people. It's going to give us energy independence. And it's going to make us less beholden to the utility companies. We saw one of the communities in South Florida that had less impacts than others was one that was largely powered by solar power. So we do need to be proactive in shifting towards renewable energy and making sure that we're addressing those root causes. when it comes to resilience with the Resilient Florida Grant Program, I'm so glad that our state has taken that action. And I mentioned that, more than a decade ago, I helped to convene stakeholders from the region and internationally to talk about this issue. It requires investments both in what's called green infrastructure and gray infrastructure. So our gray infrastructure are our roads, there are bridges, there are, our buildings, our homes. There are places where we're going to have to continue to elevate bridges or roads, making sure that we're protecting our hospitals or for our fire stations, for example. We need to make investments in that type of gray infrastructure, but we also need to make investments in what's called our green infrastructure. We know that communities that have intact seagrasses and mangroves, that they fare better from storms and hurricanes. They really are our first line of defense. So the cleaner our water is, the more seagrass and mangroves and intact barrier islands that we have, the more protected we are going to be. So it has to be a mix of all those things. You can't just address the mitigation, but we need to be addressing the root causes of the sea level rise and our climate change, making decisions as a community and where that green and gray infrastructure is going. Look at organizations like Tampa Bay Watch, who I've partnered with for the past 20 years. There's opportunities to put reef balls along your seawall. Those oysters are cleaning up our water and they're creating habitat for fish. Salt marsh planting and planting mangroves. Those are all going to keep our natural environment healthy and make our homes and our businesses more protected from future storms.
Thank you. Audrey?
I actually agree with a lot of what Lindsay said. Again, I think when it comes to the environment, this is where you're going to see a lot of bipartisanship. I loved the idea of investing in green infrastructure. That's what I was alluding to earlier with creating those reefs and natural barriers to start to protect us. Let's also be realists too. As insurance companies, they're not incentivized right now to come work in the state of Florida. In fact, we're seeing more people leave than come join us. And so we're going to have to see citizens step up. And while I'm never a fan of mandates or forcing people to do things, I think we have to start exploring some solutions that it's going to include that if you live in a flood zone, is your home protected with flood insurance? And I would love to get to work directly with this group. I'm actually a part of a number of neighborhood associations. I don't live in this neighborhood. We're in Old Northeast. But I'd love to start attending this more often. If I heard you guys meet quarterly, if there was a way that once I'm elected, we can meet monthly, I think that would be really beneficial because we can really start hammering down on these problems together. Again, this is not something, I don't think the solution should be made in a vacuum. You see a lot of newly elected, eager politicians run up to Tallahassee and within a week, they write all their bills. And then the next year, someone's having to write a new bill to fix that. It's not about you getting your name out there and getting a bill passed. It's about working with the community to truly solve these problems. And so I'd love to get to work hand in hand with you.
Okay, thank you. And Audrey, you'll go first next. We're going to switch it to education. And there's a lot of debate these days about education. And I'd like for you to share your thoughts on generally education and what you think of it. And also, what will you do if you go to Tallahassee to improve our school system?
Awesome. Sorry, I had to plug in my charger. It's been a long work day, to say the least. I said this earlier. It's not popular, but it's true. Pinellas County schools are not good. Florida schools in general are not good. You see a lot of folks moving from the Northeast. They're coming here for freedom. They're coming here because we kept businesses open, because we allowed parents to choose if their kid was going to go to school in person without a mask or to stay at home behind a screen if they wanted to. That's why people come to Florida, because we are the land of freedom and opportunity. But when I look at our education, it simply isn't matching the level of every other industry and business we have here. I pulled some numbers to share with folks because I think these are really startling. And I know when I first heard them, it shocked me. So I'll repeat again earlier. Half of our third graders in Tampa Bay cannot read at grade level. By fifth grade, if those young people can't read, there's a 76% chance they will end up in prison. And so everyone who says they care about criminal justice reform, everyone who says they care about decreasing our prison rates, it starts here in education. It starts whenever they're 8, 7, 9 years old. And so we have to really focus on education. Quite frankly, I think there's too much indoctrination happening in our schools. I don't know why we're trying to teach progressive liberal agendas at a time when our kids can't even read. We have to go back to the basics. Here in Florida, of the 3 million kids in school, 50% of them do not attend their zoned school. So when I was growing up, I was zoned for Tyrone Middle School, which was even worse than it is now, horrible school. And then I went to Dixie Allen's High School, where they took the trades out to put in a teen pregnancy center that's still there now. When I was going there, it was the largest teen pregnancy rate in all of Pinellas County. Why are we making that the incentive? We should be incentivizing our young people to get high-paying jobs. Only a third of our kids in Pinellas County go to college. What is the plan for the other 2/3? Right now, the plan is to tell them to go be bartenders and servers. That's not an option. And you hear politicians say, oh, the trades, we should promote the trades. They don't even work in the trades. I work in the trades. I'm going to tell you firsthand how we're going to get people back into the trades. I'm already working with construction companies to create curriculums because hopefully I'll get elected and we can put it in that way. If not, we're just going to create our own nonprofit to do this because there is a desperate demand to fill these jobs. Young people don't know they want to pursue them. They're being told by teachers unions and by administrators that they have to go to college because that's what these people are being paid to do. They're not being paid to find individual plans for these young people. They're being held accountable based on college entry. And don't get me wrong, college is great for some people. There's a lot of statistics that show if you have a background like mine, if you grew up dirt poor, you go to college, you're going to be more successful than your parents. But if you grew up middle income, you're more likely to be less successful than your parents. I don't know why we're not pushing entrepreneurship. You know, I started a company and landed on Forbes magazine before I was 30 years old. I had a novel idea, yes, but it was really all just about execution. And I was able to get national political figures together to come together and work on this problem and realize that our country is better than what we're providing to our young people now. So I feel, as you can probably tell, very passionate about our education, about creating more individualized programs. Something else I really want to see in our education is ensuring that parents have a say. You know, in COVID, while parents were working at home and you had 6 people all around the same table, they started to hear and see what was being taught in the schools and what was, quite frankly, not being taught. And it's kind of shocking. I talked about financial literacy earlier. I think it is absolutely insane that you can graduate from high school without knowing how to balance a checkbook, what credit card debt is, what regular debt is. And then we wonder why our nation is in so much debt. Well, we never taught anyone what to do with money, how to save it, how to invest it. These are just, to me, again, basics. I think it's so important education. We go back to the basics.
Thank you, Audrey. Lindsay?
Well, thank you. Thank you for this final question. And support for public education is certainly something that's personal to me. Both of my parents were public school teachers, and I went to public schools my entire life, including earning my master's at USF. I taught lessons at the Patel College of Global Sustainability. I'm a mentor with the Innovation Scholars Program at USF St. Pete. I actually worked for a short time as a substitute teacher, primarily in special needs classrooms. So education is part of who I am and something that I care deeply about. I also have the support of the Florida Education Association and the Pinellas County Classroom Teachers Association. And I believe that we need to holistically support our students, our parents, our teachers, and our staff in several different ways. First of all, we do need to pay our teachers and our staff fairly for the incredible work that they're doing in raising our children and educating them. We know that there is more work to be done. But it's pretty despicable that Florida ranks number 48 in teacher pay nationally. At the beginning of the academic year, there was a shortage of 8,000 teachers and 6,000 support staff. So it's no wonder that our students are not getting the education that they need. The classroom sizes are too big because they don't have the adults there who are dedicated to their education. And so while, other things are important as well, we do need to pay our teachers and our support staff fairly so that we can attract and retain good paying teachers. There are continued learning losses because of the pandemic. Audrey had some good statistics about that. And we need to have these schools fully staffed so that the kids can get the education that they deserve. I also think that we need to create a more supportive environment for our teachers and our students. Parents do need to be active and involved in their teachers' education. But I also think that Tallahassee has had too heavy of a hand in recent years, telling teachers what they can and can't do, whether it's banning books, telling teachers how they have to teach in the classroom. And that is really just taking away from the time that teachers are involved in teaching reading, teaching math, and some of those critical thinking skills. When we look at some of the deficits in the trades and manufacturing, some of the soft skills are things that people are lacking, being able to be collaborative and be problem solvers. And that starts with being empowered at the school. I think we're spending too much time on some of this culture wars stuff rather than talking with the teachers and the parents about how to really lift these children up. And third, I think that we need to have a level playing field for all of our schools so that we know that some of our for-profit charter schools don't have the same accountability that our public schools do. And I think accountability is something that we as legislators, elected officials need to be looking at in all of our programs, particularly our education and our healthcare. Those are the largest components of our budget. Our budget was over $100 billion this year. And so we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we are investing wisely in our students, because whether you have kids in public schools or not, we need to make sure that our future doctors, our future electricians, our future healthcare workers have the education and are able to have a great life here.
Great, Lindsay. Thank you very much. And it's been very informative for you guys to come on. We're going to have closing arguments. We're going to start with Audrey and then go to Lindsay.
Wonderful. One of the things I was disappointed about tonight is we didn't talk at all about inflation. And my team has knocked over 25,000 doors since June. I personally knocked almost 7,000 doors and met voters. And I got to tell you, the first, second, and third most important thing I hear from everyone across the district, including Shore Acres, is inflation and the rising cost of goods. Even homes that I walk up to them and I'm like, wow, they're definitely not struggling in this economy. They may not personally feel it, but they see the homelessness that we're starting to have again in St. Pete. I remember when I was growing up and we had the homeless tents in the cities and just how tough that became on our community. I'm very fearful that that's about to happen again. And it's because of Democratic leadership in Washington and Democratic policies that sound great. We heard some tonight. They sound great, but the cost is never considered. We, the taxpayers, are the ones that have to fund all of these politicians' fancy ideas. I'm a big believer that you shouldn't always just have a bill to fight something. That's why tonight you asked me what I was going to do. And I said, well, hey, there's actually two solutions that we haven't even tapped into yet. So why aren't we tapping into these? Why don't we have leaders and lawmakers who are truly doing what's best for our community? It's because their names weren't on them. There was nothing they would personally gain from coming in and helping our community that way. And I'm just frankly sick of that kind of politicking. That's why I'm doing this. I think you can clearly see tonight, I'm a solutions-oriented person. I'm an entrepreneur. I come to everything with that business mindset. And that's the kind of legislating I'm going to do. I also am a collaborator. I've been endorsed by all of leadership in Tallahassee, even Karen Pinellas. And I'm very excited to get to work with my future colleagues on these problems that we've created. A big part of politics is, of course, relationships. and being able to work with someone to get this done. And so we're going to need that. You know, you mentioned earlier, we're losing our state rep, so it's going to be a brand new start for someone. And so I hope to earn your support. I hope to be that person. I hope tonight you saw my passion for education funding, my passion for our community, for getting our trades in, for criminal justice reform. That's something else that I'm surprised we didn't talk more about tonight. You know, in Florida, our prisons don't have air conditioning. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be anywhere in Florida without air conditioning. And I don't think just because you make a mistake means that you should be tortured. I have seen firsthand in one of my friends' lives, he went to prison. He was struggling with alcohol abuse, but he learned a trade there. He learned electricity. And now he is out and he is an electrician and he is actually growing to take over the company. Only in the trades do you see success stories like this. It's absolutely incredible. And I think it's something we can duplicate. And I'm incentivized to do that because I think it's going to help our community here. I just want to thank everyone for being here. You're the movers and shakers and influencers in your community. Please share this. One of the few upsides of Zoom is that it can be shared after the fact. I really hope we meet in person next time. There is nothing like in person when it comes to collaborating and relationship building and working together. So I look forward to getting to meet everyone in person. If there's anything that we didn't touch on tonight, you can go to my website, audreyhenson.com. Reach out to me directly. I always respond to folks. I'm also very active on my social media. Feel free to DM me and send me any questions that you might like to go over. And if anyone's interested in getting involved in our campaign, this is a true grassroots effort, a grassroots movement. We have almost, I see Jake here, but keep me honest, but I think almost 40 regular volunteers now who are out daily. So I go to work every day, then I go knock doors, and this is the commitment I'm making to my community. And I'd love to have your helping hand in this too, because I really do think this is our opportunity to make sure that here in St. Pete and in Pinellas Park, we finally have someone from the community representing us.
Thank you, Audrey. Lindsay?
Well, I want to thank everyone for taking time this evening or whenever you're watching this to be part of this. It is so important to be part of our democracy here, whether it's at the local, the state, or the federal level. And community groups like yours, neighborhood associations, really are where you start to address problems and find solutions. And so I'm honored to be able to take some time, and for Gary and Kevin, for you to arrange this. I have a deep connection with this community. As I mentioned, I've lived in this community, been a homeowner for 18 years, and have been working to improve our water quality, look out for the health of our community members and our economy here. I have strong relationships with people in this community, whether it's at local government, at our neighborhood groups, or up in Tallahassee, and those will allow me to work across the aisle on things that are important to all of you. I think you got a little taste of some of the things that I want to be your advocate on. I want to make life more affordable. I want to maintain the quality of life that we enjoy here in District 60, particularly in the Shore Acres, along the beauty of Tampa Bay. I want to make sure that all of our students are getting the opportunities they deserve, and that we're creating great paying jobs here for our community members. I want to look at our healthcare systems. I want to make sure women have reproductive choices and that they have the freedom to make decisions that are right for them when they're planning their families. I want to ensure that we're addressing some of the affordability issues, whether it's insurance, whether it's rate, or its utility rates. We have been under Republican leadership at the state level for more than 20 years. And so it's important that we start to bring parity to that, and that we have people who are willing to speak and be the voice of the people, not necessarily the voice of the corporations and the special interest. I've been doing that for my entire career, whether it's fighting against government waste, making sure we're investing our taxpayer dollars wisely, maintaining our quality of life here. That is what I will continue to do. I've been running a strong campaign for the past 16 months I qualified by petition. I've been invested in this community, and I'm incredibly motivated and honored with the opportunity to serve you all. Look forward to getting to swim in the Shore Acres pool. I was there at the groundbreaking at the opening, but I haven't gotten to go to the pool yet. You guys live in a fantastic community, and I will always have an open door policy. Would love your support on the campaign. We are out knocking doors, and we've got a great team. You can contact me through my social media platforms at Lindsay Cross FL. And I would love to earn your vote on or before November 8th.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Audrey. I have to say, you guys did a fantastic job. And I feel like whoever is elected, we're going to have a great representative in the Florida House in District 60. We look forward to working with you, the Shore Acres Civic Association, to deal with particular problems that we have in our neighborhood. And I appreciate you guys having an open door for that. And this concludes this forum for Florida House District 60. And I'd like to, again, thank everybody for coming. And in particular, thank you, the candidates, for throwing your hat in the ring into politics, which isn't easy, in an effort to help everybody within your district. Thank you, everybody, for coming.